Guys, did you know your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED? And right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. They've helped thousands of men since 2011 feel and perform better. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Schedule your free testosterone test, exam, and consultation today. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Welcome to the KSL Real Estate Show. Hear updates on the national and local Utah real estate markets. We cover residential and commercial properties. Plus, get inspiring ideas to make your house a home from our sponsor, Osmond Designs. Here's Heather Osmond and Jeff Caplan on KSL News Radio.
Welcome to the Real Estate Show. Thank you for listening. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs. Her stores are in Lehigh and Orem. And Heather, you were at Stadium of Fire.
We sure were. We had so much fun this last week. We actually gave away a sectional at the Stadium of Fire. This isn't just an ordinary sectional that's in the shape of an L. This is a jumbo sectional. It's actually a huge oversized sofa and then also has attached ottomans. So we call them chaises, but it's double wide and you can easily fit 4 people. And then it's a super fat, cushy, comfortable fabric that's on it. And it almost feels like a minky blanket. So
you didn't give it to them at the stadium. Here you go.
Hope you can get it home. No, they actually get to come to our store and they'll show us the ticket that they won and we'll make sure that we deliver that sectional to them. So we're really excited about that. We had a blast. We love supporting local festivities, local businesses. We love sponsoring things. So that's our way of giving back. And I'm a huge fan of the Stadium of Fire and the Freedom Festival at Provo. I've been attending that since I was a little girl. So we were so happy to do that. And, you know, what everyone told me after the show was, I just wanted to jump into that sectional. And I said, me too. I think I might need one of those for my own house. Let's be honest. Anyway, that was super fun. Jeff, on this real estate show, we get to talk about anything and everything related to real estate here in the Utah market. And it's always good news. Most of the country is not as fortunate as we are here in Utah. Property values continue to go up. Commercial development is very, very strong. And this past week, I actually revisited and reviewed all of my estate planning and met with Mike Giles. I've been working with Mike for quite some time, but he is a estate planning and tax attorney. And we are so excited to have you on the show today because this is so needed and so important. Once you own real estate, you need to protect it, and then you need to prepare and plan for if and when you die, how that's going to be allocated to your kids or your loved ones. So thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
Okay, Mike, tell me how this works, right? A lot of this, people have no idea what they're doing. They don't even know where to start. If someone's listening to the show today, what do they do?
Sure. So I think one thing that about what I do in life, estate planning, is nobody really wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to come to my office and talk about, hey, what happens when I die? But in my world, I find it's really important to talk about these things and get them out there to get your plan in place so that you can plan for, one, if what happens if you die. That's what most people think about. But also what happens if you become incapacitated. Something happens to you and you're no longer able to manage your affairs by yourself. Let's put a plan in place so that you can do that. The other side of that is we talk about asset protection. How do we protect our assets from creditors and from future things that could happen that could put them at risk.
So when's the best time to get started? What age would you say?
Well, it really depends on what the purpose of it is, right? So young couples can start with their estate planning early, but they're primarily not focused on estate taxes or passing along things. I have a lot of young couples tell me, I don't have anything. I don't need to do estate planning. At that point in their lives, they're really more focused on, well, what happens if we have young kids, what happens to our kids if something happens to us? Where do they go? Who's going to take care of them? And so that's something we handle in the estate plan. And then as they grow, a lot of my clients now, I've been practicing here in Utah for 15 years in Massachusetts before that. And now a lot of my clients that I got when I first got here, they're my age and they're, advancing in their careers and their families are getting old. And I have a married daughter. They're having married kids. And now the things are changing and we're able to develop a plan that can roll with them, going forward. So starting young is good. Most people, I would say, start thinking about it when they're in their 50s. And they want to talk about, what happens when I retire. People start thinking about retirement, or maybe their parents start passing away. Those are the triggers that get people to come in and start talking about their estate plan.
So just this past week, I actually talked to my mom about her plan because I was very, very curious of how that was going to be. In talking to my mom, I really appreciated all of the effort that she put into her will and her asset protection so that it will make it very easy for myself and my 4 siblings to figure out how she exactly wanted things to be.
Sure. We try and make it a thoughtful process. As I said earlier, it's not easy to come in and talk about, what happens if you pass away. We try and come up with ways in which they can accomplish their goals and help their children be guided in kind of the same values and the same way that they built their assets. They want to kind of pass that along to their kids. We try and make that part of the process as well.
What's the difference between estate planning and asset protection planning?
Sure. Asset protection planning deals primarily with, how do we make sure that we have, if something goes wrong, if I get creditors or if I have these debts and something goes wrong in my life, how do I protect the assets that I have? That's mostly what people think about. Estate planning is primarily focused on what happens if one of these bad scenarios happens. I pass away or I become incapacitated. Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be able to do those things that need to get done and step into my shoes so that my assets are protected, or not protected, but managed in the way that I want them to be managed?
When I watch TV, you see people making out their will in dramas, and there's a whole thing of, when I go, he only gets the money if he makes sure to blank. And every lawyer I've ever talked to about estate planning says, nope, you can't control a thing once you're gone. True?
Not exactly true. I think you can control. Putting conditions on things becomes a little bit more difficult, right? If the classic case in law school was, I don't know why they were these families that had religious affiliations, right? They said, well, you can only get your inheritance if you marry a nice blank girl, right? That would be one of the things that
everybody is filling in that blank right now, by the way.
I love it.
So when those kinds of conditions are really not really enforceable, but you can, for example, in our basic estate plan, when I'm talking to a couple, I talk about, well, what do you want this to look like when it comes to your kids? And that changes over time. If their kids are really little, they're just more worried about, well, I want to make sure that they go to school and they can do the things that they want to do and they can have money for a wedding and a down payment on a home, those kinds of things. But as they get older, they're like, well, now I know who these little people are. And
some people get cut out.
But it's
right?
true.
And that one I trust, that one I don't trust.
Right.
Or that one, would take care of their money and that one won't. And so we provide options to, maybe there's a kid's share that stays in trust for a longer time, or maybe all the kids' shares stay in trust. And so we try and make it as personal as we can. The parents can't control everything after they die, but they do have a little bit of control about when and under what circumstances things will come.
Do you get a level of control over whether they fight and take each other to court after you're gone? Because the one thing you want is your family unit to be preserved, right?
Sure. And this is one of the ways that causes problems in that area. You can say in your estate plan, look, if anybody fights or if anybody challenges this, then they get $1 or they get nothing. Or sometimes people come in and say, I want to exclude this kid, and then I want to put it in there that if they fight about it, they get nothing. Those provisions are on their face. They're a deterrent for families, not always enforceable 100%. Utah law says if somebody doesn't have probable cause to bring a challenge, then maybe it's enforceable. But if somebody has a good reason, say, the will was done when mom or dad was 80 years old and they only lived with this one kid, and now everything goes to that one kid, there's some facts there that might support a challenge. So
this is absolutely fascinating. Today we have Mike Giles. He is an estate planning and tax attorney with Bennett, Tueller, Johnson, and Deere in the area. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back.
It's finally time to say goodbye to the snow and hello to spring, and right now is the best time to spring into adventure in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center. Through this week, come check out Motorsportsland's season kickoff event and find the RV you've been dreaming of. Save thousands and even tens of thousands off MSRP and find your next adventure at a Motorsportsland RV Center today.
Let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Motorsportsland.com.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You know, it's really easy to fall in love with a new home without thinking about what's close to that home. In Daybreak, you'll find literally dozens of new home styles surrounded by literally dozens of parks, over 50 miles of trails, great neighborhood schools, a big freshwater lake, shops and restaurants. In fact, you can canoe across the lake to grab lunch. And there's so much more to come. You can explore it all at daybreakutah.com.
The murder of two men forces their families to wrestle with impossible questions. Who is forgiveness for? Does everyone deserve a second chance? Follow Season 2 of The Letter, Ripple Effect, at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back with the KSL Real Estate Show, sponsored by Osmond Designs on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Show, and we thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs. Her stores are in Lehigh and Orem. So in between the 4th of July and Pioneer Day, that's when everybody refurnishes their homes, right?
They totally should. You know, if you're not doing that, you need to do that. If you were recently at the Stadium Fire this last week, we gave away the most incredibly comfortable and stylish sectional that was probably ever designed. I'm a little biased, but it's that minky blanket fabric, and it's a big, chunky corduroy. And 4 people can sit on this thing. It's a big, oversized sofa with chaises or ottomans attached to it. So it's like one big giant bed. And can you just picture yourself watching a movie, watching a jazz game, just lounging out? You'll probably fall asleep within 5 minutes of sitting on this thing because it's so comfortable. But if you don't have a great sofa, if you don't have a great sectional, now's the time to get one. And we have them available and in stock at Osmond Designs. And we're super excited about that. I'm a local business owner. I was born and raised in Utah. I don't know a lot about asset protection and estate planning. And just over the last few months, it's been on my mind just because maybe I'm getting older. I don't know, Mike and Jeff, but I started thinking, what do I want to leave my kids someday? And how is that going to look? And so I started asking my mom what hers looks like. And my dad was a very, very hardworking guy and set my mom up beautifully. And she's living a great, life. But just want to make sure that I'm friends with my siblings if and when something ever happens to her, and I want my kids to be friends. So today we have Mike Giles on the show with us. He is a partner with Bennett, Tueller, Johnson, and Deere, and you specifically focus on estate planning, and you're a tax attorney. So we love all of your advice. Thank you so much for being here today.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about when should people review and how often should they be reviewing these estate plans once they're set up?
Sure. When I meet with a client for our last meeting is our signing meeting, and we meet together. We go through the documents, make sure they're accurate, make sure it says what they want it to say. And we get everything signed. It's a common question. And so I tell people that, every 5 years, pull it out, look at it, make sure that it still says what you want it to say, make sure the people that you've named to be your trustees or your personal representatives or powers of attorney, that all of those are still accurate and current. I also tell people that you should pull it out when there's a big event in their life. So it could be that their first child gets married, or it could be that one of their children gets injured or becomes incapacitated, something sadder like that. But typically when there's a big change in your life, you retire or you sell a big asset or any of those times, those are times to pull out your estate plan and look at them to make sure that it still is current.
So how does that work with assets versus liabilities? Because those liabilities are also handed down, right?
Yeah. So it in a way, a lot of people will ask me, well, if my mom and dad have all this debt and they pass away, am I going to be responsible to pay that out of my own assets? And the answer is no. We have our own debts, and if I were to pass away, my assets that are in my estate would be available to pay my debts, but my kids wouldn't have to pay my debts from their own assets.
So your assets have to pay the debt. So specifically, let's talk about a home, right? So you own a home, maybe you owe $100,000 and it's worth $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an example.
That's an example, and many times the mortgage company will let somebody assume that mortgage. The inheritor is going to assume it. A lot of times, if you have multiple kids that are inheriting, the house is just going to get sold, and the debt will get paid off in that way. But mortgage companies just need to know what's going on, right?
Well, that's the mortgage company. What if they also have massive credit card debt?
Sure. So those debts are also due and payable by the estate. There's a time period in which creditors can bring claims against an estate after somebody passes away, and that's limited. But if the kids know about it, if they're sending bills to the house, they're going to know about these things. And so it's important, really important, that when somebody becomes in charge of their parents' estate, that they don't just get the money and send it out. They take the time to find out who these creditors are, because then if they don't, they could end up being personally responsible to pay those debts themselves, and we don't want that.
For sure. So how does that work with deciding and determining who is in charge of all of that? Is it just case-by-case basis?
Sure. We talk a lot about that with our clients. Who do you want to be in charge? And a lot of times they'll be asking me all these questions. Well, what if this happens? What if they go to the bank and they take all the money out? And what if they go to Vegas and they put it all on black just to double the inheritance?
Is this, we're talking after you've passed?
After they've passed away. Okay. So people are concerned about that. And when people have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, I usually turn them back to the person they've chosen and say, well, do you trust this person? Would you trust this person to take over your assets now and manage them for you? Because a lot of times they have concerns about the people they've chosen, not necessarily about, what could happen. And a lot of times they feel driven by, it has to be my oldest child because they're going to be upset if I don't choose them. But sometimes the oldest child isn't the best child for this job. It's a job, and it's something that somebody has to be focused on and do. And so picking somebody that can manage a complex, manage your estate. You want to pick somebody that can do that for you.
And a lot of that is just managing finances too, right? And
right.
All of our kids have different strengths and weaknesses, and recognizing those and making it so it's not an offensive decision. It's helpful for all of the people that are involved.
But correct me if I'm wrong. There's a second part of the job. It's managing the siblings who are also in the will, right?
That's also something to consider. Who's not gonna be hurt by maybe some frustration on somebody's part, or is going to be able to manage those personalities. That's also important.
So how does that work? Do you have advice for that?
Pick a strong personality. I don't know.
Here's another way to put it.
This is a real thing.
Yeah. Co-executors. I hear about that sometimes. Does that work, or does that end in fighting?
That's actually a good way to do it, because now you've got two people that can play good cop, bad cop, if you want to think of it that way, or they can, they might be able to manage different people in the family a different way. And now you can always say, well, I can't decide that until my brother says that that's okay, or my sister says that's okay.
And I think checks and balances are always a good thing. So you're listening to the KSL Real Estate Show. Today we have Mike Giles. He is a partner with Bennett, Tueller, Johnson, and Deere. We're talking about estate planning and tax attorney stuff. All the things that we wonder about, but we don't know. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on the Real Estate Show.
The murder of two men forces their families to wrestle with impossible questions. Who is forgiveness for? Does everyone deserve a second chance? Follow Season 2 of The Letter, Ripple Effect, at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
911, what's your emergency?
They kidnapped my son.
What would you do if your child disappeared and someone you trusted was responsible?
We thought he cared for McKay, when in fact he didn't care for anyone.
Listen to Ransom now at ransompodcast.com.
Welcome to the KSL Real Estate Show. Hear updates on the national and local Utah real estate markets. We cover residential and commercial properties. Plus, get inspiring ideas to make your house a home from our sponsor, Osmond Designs. Here's Heather Osmond and Jeff Caplan on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. Thank you for listening. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs. Her stores are in Lehigh and Orem. So what is going on at the stores?
Oh, Jeff, we are cleaning up the Utah Valley Parade of Homes. Oh, my word. All of the things. It's so much fun. We have so many clients that are coming in and saying, I saw this in home number 4 in the master bedroom. I need it. Can you find it? And so then we have to go do all the searching, but it is so much fun. So that's what we're busy with this week. We also are celebrating the 4th of July and the 24th of July, which are huge, not only national holidays, but also Utah holidays. And that's always fun. We recently gave away, just this last week, a killer sectional at the Stadium of Fire. And that was so much fun. You should have seen the guy on the Jumbotron. He was jumping up and down and freaking out. And hopefully this next week we'll be delivering that sectional to him. So he was a lucky guy to win that. So that's all exciting at our store. We get to talk about a lot of fun things on the Real Estate Show. Today is maybe not quite as fun, but is probably more important than most of the shows that we do talk about. And today we have Mike Giles. He is one of the leading experts in the state of Utah. He is a partner at Bennett, Tueller, Johnson, and Deere. And he's an estate planning and tax attorney. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Great.
So, truth be told, Mike Giles is actually my tax attorney and estate planning attorney. And I've had such a great experience with you that I invited you and knew you would be the right person for this. And you've done such a great job. There's so many positives to this conversation that we can talk about that make things easier, but there's also negatives. Let's maybe talk about what are some of the positives?
So some of the positives of getting your estate plan in place are that you can sleep a little better at night. When I talk to people, I talk to them about what keeps you up at night about your estate plan or in asset protection planning. What's keeping you up at night? And so once people get it done, it's not, it's no fun to come and talk to me in my office about your death, right? Or something bad that could happen in your life. But what we're doing is we're laying a plan that prepares you and your kids for what could happen. And so that's one of the major positives about it. You can know that it's there. I have a lot of people that call me, hey, we're going to Hawaii or we're going to Tahiti for the first time and we need to get our estate plan in place. I say, when are you leaving? They're like, tomorrow. and like, that's great.
That's great.
I'm so happy for you. But,
yeah.
We'll
hurry and download something online real quick.
But do you find that people do this ahead of trips? I'm going to be flying, and
absolutely.
then they call you?
Yeah, that's one of the, I talk about the triggers that people will have people come and talk to me because nobody really wants to talk to me, right? So
taxes and death.
Yeah, death and tax. I'm the sure, I handle the sure
but
things in your
nice.
life.
You're so nice. You make it great.
But when they think about, when they think about going somewhere without their kids for the first time, now it's like, gosh, what happens if the plane goes down or what happens if something happens to us while we're away? And so we talk about that. And when you get it done, now you can travel as much as you want and not worry about that.
Okay, so what are some of the negatives? This is maybe a little bit harder.
The negatives is it brings up uncomfortable conversations. It brings up, we ask some pretty directed conversations like, tell me about your kids. Tell me who's going to do a good job as your trustee, who's not going to do a good job as your trustee.
Do couples sometimes fight over the answers to these questions?
Sometimes. A lot of times I'll ask a question and then they'll look at each other and it's a little bit of silence. And I always say, you don't have to decide that right now. Especially in a second marriage or a third marriage, whatever, a second where there's this mixed family and you've got kids from one relationship and kids from another relationship. Sometimes those conversations are uncomfortable, but those, especially in that case, that's a really important conversation to have so that there's expectations set for you for when one of you passes away, and also expectations set for the kids so that they know that things are in place and they're not really freaking out that stepmom or stepdad's gonna run away with the estate.
Do executors get paid?
They can be, yeah. So
now, how does can or doesn't work?
Well, there are, in our documents, we always provide a provision that an executor or a trustee can receive compensation. It has to be reasonable compensation. But a lot of times a family member won't take it because they just feel like this is the job that their mom or dad gave to them. Sometimes, though, it's good to take it because now the kids recognize this is a job. It really is a job. It takes a lot of time away from your life. So you can be compensated. I always leave that decision up to the client, but I always tell them if you're going to be compensated, just keep track of your time, and you can choose later on, after a few months of doing this, whether you think it's worth it or necessary. But we always prepare as if you're going to be compensated, but you don't necessarily have to.
Do you put that in the will? The executor will be given 1% of.
No, we just say reasonable compensation. That's what the statute says, and we stick with that.
So in most cases, money, I think, is the easy part, right? Relatively, there's only a set amount of money, and everyone gets a portion of that, depending on your family dynamics and how that works. Real estate assets, maybe another easy one. We own a home. We own, maybe they own an investment property. You sell the property, it's split. Business assets, that may be a little more complicated, especially if the business has, partners. And that can get really messy. Healthcare is huge. Who's making the decisions on how to manage that person if they do become ill?
Sure. So the asset side of the estate administration process can be very straightforward because we try and lay those rules out in the documents, right? That's what they say. This is going to go to this person. This is how much is going to go to this person. When you get to the healthcare, and this is more, you become incapacitated during your lifetime, that becomes more involved. It's certainly more emotional, and we handle those circumstances with a power of attorney and with a healthcare directive. And in those documents, you get to name a person who will be your agent to handle legal or financial affairs for you if you're incapacitated, and also medical affairs. And then you also give your agent the a little bit of direction about how you want your medical affairs to be handled, especially around end-of-life care.
So I've always believed there's just one in every family that's always going to cause problems. That's just what I've heard. Am I correct?
Not in every family.
Good.
In my world, sometimes I think so because that's all I see, right? Mm-hmm. There's probably hundreds of estates that just go off without me ever hearing about them. But yeah, it can seem that way. What
about personal belongings? How does that work? Because a lot of those specific things
that
are maybe...
That's easy. Whoever gets to the house first
gets to take whatever they want.
That happens a lot. So typically the personal property is included with, the trustee has the job to go and collect that stuff and to come up with a plan to how are we going to get this to the kids. Some people want to be very specific about that. And so we will have a procedure in there that says, you're going to get everybody together. Everybody's going to pull a number out of a hat, and you're going to go in ascending, then descending, or get really detailed. They want to be really detailed about that.
Is that typical?
No, it's atypical, but some people want that to be very clear because they had a bad experience, right? When grandma died, my aunts and uncles all were yelling at each other at the house because they all wanted the salad bowl that they ate potato salad out of on Thanksgiving.
Or maybe it's a wedding ring. Maybe it's the photo albums. There's just some things that you can't just duplicate. So
yeah, we do provide as part of our estate plan what we call a tangible personal property sheet, and what that means is the client can take that and they can write down, if they want to give a specific item to a specific person, they can write it down. They can put who's going to get it and they sign that. And when they do that, that's just as good as amending the trust or the will to do that. And then when the person ticks them off, they can cross them out and they can change it. But they can change that on their own time. They don't have to come back to the lawyer's office every time they want to change who gets the wedding ring or the salad bowl or the kitchen table or whatever.
I think that's so important. Okay, so recently I purchased a home and the parents had passed away, and it was the biggest part of the marital estate. And the son lived locally and the rest of the family lived out of state. And he was the one that had to do everything. And it wasn't set up properly. And so he was doing a lot of those meetings and trying to get it out of probate. And that has burned in my head. And maybe that's why all of this is a little more, on the forefront for me, is making sure that you are prepared, because it really does make all the difference in the world when it is pre-planned and prepared.
Sure. Yeah, real estate can be, you said earlier that real estate can be an easier part of this. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes, because you'll do your estate plan and you'll live in one home. We don't live in our homes as long as people used to. And people will change homes and they won't get it retitled in the name of their trust. They won't do the things that are necessary to avoid that probate process. And so that can be one issue that comes up a lot. Or there's this, piece of property you inherited in Duchesne County that has mineral interests or something like that in it. And that's got to be dealt with after you pass away. So trying to keep up on that is a really important part of the estate planning process as well.
Well, and this is definitely not a DIY yourself, order something online to do. This is a lot of money, and this is very, very important. And so having all of the experts on your team to help you prepare and have some forethought and experience of things that maybe you have not thought of. Today we have Mike Giles. He is an estate planning and tax attorney for Bennett, Tueller, Johnson, and Deere here in the Salt Lake Valley. One of the absolute best in the whole state of Utah. How do people find you, Mike?
So my information is available on our website, btjd.com. That's probably the best way to get a hold of us. And you can read about our firm and our different practices there.
You're listening to the KSL Real Estate Show. I'm Heather Osmond. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Two young fathers are shot to death outside an iconic Utah restaurant.
I said, your dad has been hurt really bad.
The grief was disorienting for those left behind, until one choice changed everything.
I just remember writing this letter, and it wasn't me writing it.
Can a personal decision shape generations?
We're all falling for this guy's trick.
I'm Amy Donaldson. Season 2 of The Letter, Ripple Effect, is available now. Follow us at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
911, what's your emergency?
They kidnapped my son.
What would you do if your child disappeared and someone you trusted was responsible?
We thought he cared for McKay, when in fact he didn't care for anyone.
Listen to Ransom now at ransompodcast.com.
We're back with the KSL Real Estate Show, sponsored by Osmond Designs on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Caplan. Heather Osmond is here from Osmond Designs. Her stores are in Lehigh and Orem. So we're talking about estate planning, Heather. And so I have a great idea for your store.
I'm ready.
Whenever you sell like an ottoman or a sofa, have a little kiosk, right, with an estate planning attorney there. So if you happen to go, who would you like this ottoman to go? What do you think? Is this an idea?
That's a great idea, right? Great purchase. Which child would you like to inherit this beautiful dining table? You have all the good ideas, Jeff. Today we have Mike Giles. He is an estate planning and tax attorney with Bennett, Tueller, Johnson, and Deere here in the Salt Lake area. One of the all-time best in the entire state of Utah, and we're so happy and blessed to have him on the show with us today. I get to talk about, furnishings and design trends, and your sofa's ugly, you should buy a new one, and all the good things. We have painters on, we have contractors and, executive directors for home builders associations. We've never had an estate planning and tax attorney on. So today has been so great for me. I've learned a lot. If you happen to miss our podcast today, definitely go to the KSL Radio website on Monday and it will be uploaded on there. Today we've had Mike Giles. He's incredible. Mike, thank you so much for your time. One thing that I, just in listening to what we've been talking about, noticed is that it seems very scary and intimidating, and we don't know what we don't know. And I think it's important for people to know that this isn't really as scary as it sounds.
Sure, yeah. It's scary to talk about your death. It's scary to talk about the circumstances in which these things are going to come to be. But, we try and make that process very welcoming and very easy. Try and help you understand these kind of complex processes or complex ideas. And it shouldn't be scary. It should be something that you have in your toolbox, just like you have your car insurance or you have your homeowner's insurance. It should be something you put in your toolbox that you have that's ready for whenever you might need it. And at some point, you will, but hopefully not for a long time.
And there's this quote that says, if you are prepared, you shall not fear. And I think that's what estate planning really is all about. Once you know where your assets are going, you trust the people that will be handling them. It should go very smoothly. And that's the whole goal for today. We also want to give a shout out to Central Bank. They are trusted bankers and loyal friends. And again, they are safe and secure. Not only do they give residential loans, they give commercial loans, they give business loans. They have a youth smart savings plan that is absolutely incredible to help young kids start to save money and have bank accounts, and they match A's for grades. And it's actually a really cool thing. So thank you, Central Bank, for your support of this show and also of our community. They're fantastic. So, Mike, your job really is to protect money. It's to protect real estate assets, business assets, and give healthcare derivatives to executors so that they know how to handle things for all of our personal belongings, correct?
Right, healthcare directives. My job is to really give people peace of mind and to provide guidance so that they feel comfortable. They feel comfortable with what they're doing and with what they have in place. If they feel comfortable with where they're at, then they feel a bit more freedom to go and do the things they really want to spend time doing, not talking to their estate planning lawyer.
For sure. And once it's done, it's great, and it can be edited. I think it's important for people to realize that you can do one today, and then 6 months from now, 5 years from now, you can make changes as your family dynamics change. And I think that's as important as ever.
So what's the whole thing you see in TV shows where they suddenly there's a new will that's just surfaced and all that? Does that happen?
It does happen. There's will contests that happen a lot. Somebody will have, mom hand wrote this the last week of her life, and this is what it says. And so that's why there's a process, and there's protections in place for that, and a way for people to air that out.
Let's be prepared. Thank you for joining us on the KSL Real Estate Show. So grateful to have you. I'm Heather Osmond, owner of the Osmond Designs Furniture and Interior Design Stores. And just a shout out, we are still doing Parade of Homes. We have Cache County that we just set up. We're currently in the process of setting up Salt Lake. And then we have the Park City Showcase. So, there's lots of exciting things going on here in the Utah area. Let's get your wills, your estate planning done, and then let's go buy some real estate. What do you think? So, Mike, how do people find you?
So, as I said earlier, the easiest place is btjd.com, or you can call our office at 801-438-2000.
Let's get prepared and set up our estate planning, not only for yourself, but ask those loved ones around you so that they're prepared. We're so grateful to have you on the show with us today. We'll be back next week. Heather Osmond signing off for today.
Ew. Gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.